Hi there, Hillary here for Waterlogged on behalf of saltwateraquarium.com. If you've seen some of my previous videos, you know that I added more than 20,000 copepods to this tank behind me to help it to cycle and get through the uglies, as well as start a pod population for my future fish. Now, in that video, I talked about how the Reef Nutrition line has quite a few different products that I would like to talk about and share with you, and you guys were just as enthusiastic about it as I am. So today, I'm going to talk about 2 different Reef Nutrition products. Now, if you're interested in learning about copepods and how to add them to your tank and maybe how many you need to get, make sure to go back and check out that previous video because I talk all about it. Okay, let's go ahead and start talking about our 2 products that we're going to discuss today, and that would be Phyto Feast and Oyster Feast. Okay, let's get started talking about Phyto Feast. So what is Phyto Feast? Phyto Feast is a blend of 5 different types of algae. In it, you're going to get your brown algae, your green algae, your blue-green algae, your yellow-green, and your golden algae. So 5 different types of algae that make up this product here. Now, if you're familiar with the Reef Nutrition line, you might be saying, well, Hillary, what's the difference between the Phyto Feast and the Phyto Feast Live? Well, there's a couple of differences. One, the algae in the Phyto Feast Live is actually still living algae. As a result, it is going to have a shorter shelf life than the Phyto Feast. Now, the Phyto Feast has a shelf life of 8 months, so you can use it for quite a while. Now, one thing that I learned at the trade shows is that if you get the Phyto Feast live and it passes that 3 months, you are just basically going to have Phyto Feast, so you could probably still continue to use it safely. One thing I would recommend is that if you open it and it smells kind of funky, go ahead and toss it out. Now, when you're storing the Phyto Feast and the Oyster Feast, they both need to be refrigerated. Please, please, please do not leave them out and forget about them. You're not going to enjoy that next time you open it. Now, this is going to be good for filter feeders, and because it is feeding filter feeders, it has a very small particle size. So the Phyto Feast has a particle size between 1 and 15 microns. It's pretty small. When you look at it, it kind of looks like a green smoothie, if you will. Now, I mentioned filter feeders, but let's go a little bit more in depth on those filter feeders. So think things like your flame scallops, if you have any sponges, tridacnid clams are another good one, or even tunicates, and feather dusters if you have them, as well as some of the other corals in your tank. They're really going to appreciate this. So Phyto Feast is going to feed a large number of species that are in your tank. But what is the nutrition that they are going to be getting out of it? Well, they're going to be getting a lot of phytopigments from it. They're going to be getting lipids, carbohydrates, amino acids, omega-3 fatty acids, a whole bunch of really important key nutritional elements that they can get from Phyto Feast. Okay, let's move on and talk about the Oyster Feast. Now, Oyster Feast is, like I said, one of the best sellers of Reef Nutrition, and it's my personal favorite out of their liquid concentrate line. I've used it for years, and I've seen great feeding response from my different corals that I've used it on. Now, what is Oyster Feast? It's actually very simple. There are 3 different ingredients in Oyster Feast. You're going to get oyster eggs, gonads, and oyster tissue. So when you look at this, if you take a look at the bottom, you're going to see a bunch of different particle sizes. Now, the particle sizes that you're going to get in this food are going to range from 1 micron all the way up to 200 microns. Now, I've already mentioned that this needs to be refrigerated, but it doesn't hurt to say it again. So what are you going to be feeding with Oyster Feast? Oyster Feast is great across the board. You can use it to feed your fish, both large and small. It is actually pretty cool because if you were to take drops of it and drop it directly into the tank, you can see that it kind of stays together in a little droplet and allows for fish with different mouth sizes to eat it. They can eat little parts, or if it's a larger fish with a bigger mouth, they can just gulp that whole bite of Oyster Feast up. But fish aren't the only thing that you can use Oyster Feast to feed. You can feed things like your acros, your monoporas, any SPS corals that you have. If you've got LPS corals like those ganies and the phytes, good for those as well. But it doesn't stop there, there's still more. You can use it to feed any of your NPS corals. You can use it to feed your amphipods and copepods, and a lot of the other invertebrates that are in your tank are gonna love it. I've seen shrimp go nuts over this. I've talked a lot about how the fish and the inhabitants in your tank really enjoy this. And if you actually look on the Reef Nutrition website, they talk about how you can use Oyster Feast as a first course, if you will, to elicit a feeding response from the different animals in your tank. So if you've got some of those corals that are a little bit slower eaters, what you could do is take a few drops of this and put it in front of your returns, let that get circulated in your tank for 15 to 30 seconds, and put those on pause. And put them on feed mode and watch your corals get ready. Then you could continue to feed Oyster Feast if you wanted, or if you had other foods you were feeding for the day, you can again use that to get them prepared for food. Okay, now what are the nutritional benefits of Oyster Feast? So the way that this is processed, it's not heat processed, so it's still going to retain all of the nutrients that are originally in those oyster tissues and the eggs and the gonads. And it's going to be really high in protein and omega-3 fatty acids. So it's a lot of really good nutrition that your fish and corals will benefit from. So how do you feed these products? How do you know how much to feed? Well, it's pretty simple actually. Any of the Reef Nutrition products, if you rotate the bottle around to the side, it gives you here some instructions on how to feed. Now, both of these and most of their products are highly concentrated, so a little is going to go a long way. For example, the Oyster Feast, 1 to 2 teaspoons per 100 gallons. If you've ever done any cooking, you know a teaspoon is a very small amount, and so this is what I like to do when I'm feeding. I actually have a shot glass that is dedicated for my fish tank. You can get this one on saltwateraquarium.com. I like to put a little bit of the tank water in my shot glass and then add the amount of, say, Oyster Feast or Phyto or whatever product I'm using into the shot glass. Let this come up to tank temperature. It shouldn't take long. And then use this to target feed my corals or to broadcast feed the tank. Now, I mentioned a second ago, if you want to feed your fish, you can add drops straight from the bottle into the water. But if you are feeding corals, please, please, please do not take a product that has been cold in the refrigerator and target feed into your corals. They're not going to appreciate that at all. They probably aren't going to get all the nutrition in it because they're going to be kind of irritated with you that you've put a bunch of cold stuff on them. So that, I think, is going to wrap up everything that I have in this video for Phyto Feast and for Oyster Feast. Again, they are some of the best-selling products that Reef Nutrition has, and so I'm curious to know, have you ever tried either of them? Which of the species in your tank enjoy them the most? All right, stay tuned. I've got a couple more Reef Nutrition food product videos that are going to be coming out. We're going to talk about some of the other products that they have. If there's something specific that you're looking for, make sure to send a message, let us know. I'll be happy to get that in the lineup. All right, this has been Hillary for Waterlogged on behalf of saltwateraquarium.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.